All right, a very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain Oso.
Indeed, it's a beautiful Tuesday morning. Well, almost every day has been beautiful this last couple of days. I mean, if you're watching the weather, if you love the weather like I do. Good morning and welcome. It's a clear morning here in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, at Maokwe Ogunyosun.
Including the weather that you create with your air conditioning. It's the 29th day in the month of August. Good morning and welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Time is flying so fast, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, who knows? Yesterday was that celebration in Edo State, the 60th anniversary colloquium of the creation of the Midwest region, now Edo and Delta states. You know, as much as, yes, there was a lot of focus and good things to say about all of that, but there was something also going on behind the scenes. Well, sometimes it was even in front of a lot of people, even though some other persons acted as though they were not seeing what was happening right there in the hall. It turns out that if you thought that what you had been hearing behind the scenes between the governor and deputy was just hush-hush, I mean, it was just rumor, it appears as though there's much more to that, because right there in the hall, and then even from the images we saw, it appeared, you could see that, oh, wait a minute, something is clearly amiss here. There was a certain time the deputy tried to go ahead and normally greet the governor, as you could see in this first video. Let's see if we could go over that again. Yeah, there you go. So that's the governor sitting right there. That's a security aide of the governor right there, just preventing the deputy from going ahead and getting access to the governor, who himself, there you see, just reading on, perhaps oblivious of what's going on.
Perhaps.
So
from what we can see, I mean, it looked like he didn't even know anything was.
Or is it that he hasn't seen this, or he's not been told? I try to come across, then just say a word or two, but your security aides prevented me.
Does it have to be? Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm not a politician, so I don't know. But I mean, he's the deputy governor, like the partner, the person with whom he's supposed to be doing this job.
So, but he tried. He just said, "Well, I'll greet you from a distance," even though the aide won't let me come to. But he just did that for, at least the cameras did see that part.
The call aide.
Yeah.
But what's wrong with going to his
office? I mean, like, what a task you have.
I don't think the governor even responded to that greeting. Why? Because he didn't see it. So, but just watch again. You see how he just thought, well, okay, if he won't let me, so there you go. That's the greeting right there. So, did any response from the governor?
Well, I don't know if it looked like the governor looked up or something.
But that wasn't all. There's another clip where, at that particular colloquium, wherein the deputy, I think he got access to the hall because we saw him in the hall. Then his media aides were trying to get into the hall, and it turns out that didn't happen. But even yesterday, news as well, you could see certain directives had been given. But, while they go back and forth with all of this, we just need to see that, look, you shouldn't let it affect the work of journalists who are there to do their jobs as much as possible. So that's what we need to try and ensure that, look, but they may have their spat. But because, I think that's going to be...
Okay,
let's play that and then see that.
Was hosted, of course, by the governor. Colloquium, as you mentioned earlier, in Benin City. That's where the whole thing held. Although the security operatives tried to offer explanations to the deputy governor, the ensuing drama, Shaibu insisted that his own aides must come with him into the hall. Along the line, when it wouldn't happen, he just told his aides to come
I think he left the hall too.
Oh, yeah, most certainly. He left the hall and got in the car, got in his car and drove off. For me, the question that I am asking is, first of all, this doesn't look good. It doesn't look good at all. And, naturally, as journalists, we can recall the number of times we've had this governor, deputy governor issues that made it to the front pages of papers and to the media, radio and TV stations and all of that. Number one, it doesn't look good. Number two, how does this affect, the general well-being of the entire environment? For me, it's a very, very concerning thing. I'm just
like a toxic environment.
Okay, was it just 2 days ago or so that we heard the same deputy governor saying, himself and the governor?
Yes, good books. I'm loyal. I took an oath of loyalty of him between me and my God. Pledge I have made. That's what he said, and that, but that doesn't stand in the way of ambition. Look, it's very difficult to discuss what is going on in Edo State. I don't even know. It's very difficult to take because really the deputy governor is very much tied to the ticket of the governor. People usually liken the deputy to a spare tire. He only has, even the vice president many times, he only has a function when the president is not around or the president is not available, or as much as the president or the governor wishes him or her to have.
Yeah.
And apparently there is not a very clear role, a definitive role for deputies or vices in our constitution. You only do as much as the principal wants you to do, because you're there in the event that this person cannot act or this person cannot carry out his or her functions.
Except for the constitutional roles of chairman of NEC.
And that's for the vice president. There's no such role for deputy governors. Unless maybe we're missing something. Maybe lawyers can let us know. But this is what we have been told over time. So we've seen when governors get uncomfortable with their deputies, or when they begin to suspect that a deputy governor has ambition, then you now begin to see how things can, fall apart. So we've seen that in a number of states. And this is not the first time, starting from the beginning of the Fourth Republic, starting all the way from 1999.
Yeah.
So this is not something that is strange, but it's always never pretty whenever it is that we see it. In Edo, the story is particularly very awkward because we've also seen the political journey that these two have been on. They were both in one political party, the APC, moving to, they had, there was a big tiff. The deputy governor, we understood, stood with the governor in all of that time. And, even from what we understand, some even say he was the arrowhead of, showing the governor the way to go. He showed him how to navigate the political ropes. That's what is out there. And then, they both leave the party together to the PDP. In the PDP, people were wondering how, even if the governor is given a ticket, what is going to happen to his deputy? Was he going to, was the PDP also going to give the ticket to the deputy governor as well? It does appear that they both pushed, or the governor pushed, to ensure that his deputy was with him on the same ticket. He wasn't out in the cold. So they both won on that same ticket as well. And this is, for a second term, and this is where we are. And now it does appear that the deputy governor has ambition of his own. He wants to succeed his principal. His principal doesn't think he should succeed him. And we now begin to see all of this politicking around it. The deputy governor goes to court, tells the court, look, prevent my governor from trying to impeach me. The governor says, oh, look, that was totally uncalled for. I had no intention of doing so. But then what do we make of all of these shenanigans? All of these happenings around now. He tries to see you. He wants to greet you. None of that is happening. But, it is only what we see. We don't know what has gone on behind the scenes. We don't know because the deputy governor also admits, don't forget that at that particular Thanksgiving for Edo, and this is very awkward because it happened in a place where you're supposed to be giving thanks to God. It's very, very, didn't the Bible say something to the effect that if you remember that you have something against your brother and you're about to bring an offering to me, you should go and first of all make up with your brother before you
sacrifice at the altar.
And then come back and chop your offering. So precisely how are they practicing this Christianity? I don't know. I mean, this is what I know in my own Bible. But, I mean, maybe there is a political Bible. Maybe that doesn't apply in the world of politics. Maybe. I just don't know. But here they were at Thanksgiving, ostensibly. According to them, the governor was there. Deputy governor tries to greet the governor. It doesn't happen. So he goes and, you know, he's on the other side. He's doing his own thing. He's dancing his own way. And, you know, when he's done, they leave at the 32nd Thanksgiving of Edo State. And then that's that. And then you now have the, what's that, 60th celebration of colloquium of Midwestern State. Yeah, the creation. I happened to live in Bendel State when it was still Bendel. And I lived in Delta State when it became Delta and Edo. So maybe I should have been there. But if this is what happens, they're celebrating.
But if you went to the deputy governor, you might not have entered.
Maybe, from the look of things. So make sure you're on the right team when you go to attend those kinds of things.
No, Mark, I'm sure she will choose some other captains to go with.
No, we would have found a neutral way to enter because we don't take any sides. Anyways, at this celebration, which is supposed to, you know, incorporate all of the past governors or all the past leaders, as it were, of the Midwestern region, you know, transiting perhaps into Bendel, and then transitioning into Edo and Delta, you now find a deputy governor. Well, I hear the problem was that he tried to enter with his own media team.
There's an account that said they were already inside.
Okay.
But they were picked and flushed out.
And they were flushed out.
And when the deputy governor left, the media aides tried to get back in. They didn't allow them to get back in.
Okay, so I understand, because the governor actually released a statement saying, you know, they're disbanding that media crew. That is a breach of protocol. So maybe there is some ground to this. I don't know. Were they in existence before this battle started? Did the deputy governor always go everywhere with his own media team? I don't know. But all I know is this is not very pretty. This is highly distracting. I sincerely hope that it doesn't, because this is very close to elections. But I do hope that, you know, governance doesn't take the back seat on the altar of what we're currently seeing in Edo State. I sincerely hope that, you know, the governor would remain focused, you know, knowing that whatever teeth he has with his deputy governor, he needs to be kept as private as possible. And Mr. Deputy Governor, if you see that, look, going to an event where the governor is going to, you know, cause some embarrassment. You know, maybe you're not wanted there. I don't know. Maybe you
if he doesn't show up, remember some governors who said, well, deputy had not been showing up. Zamfara, for instance, said he had not been showing up for events. He's been absconding, and that's against the law. You're supposed to show up for functions like this.
Yeah, but clearly, apparently, he's not wanted at these events. We've seen it on 2 occasions where he can't even greet his own principal.
Does he stop going,
or should he keep extremely odd.
So that he seems to have attended and they keep turning him back?
For me, you know, ladies and gentlemen, what I would, something very, very important that Mark West said is something that should be paid attention to, particularly now that we have former governors and former deputy governors in the National Assembly. You said, Mawakwe, that it's a joint ticket.
It is.
So there can be no governor
without a deputy governor. Indeed.
I think that's what happened. Was it in Imo? The
Bayelsa.
Was it Bayelsa?
Yes,
Bayelsa, thank
where
you.
the governor was actually elected, was already practicing, and, you know, about, I think, a day to inauguration, and they found out that, oh, there was something wrong with the papers, certificate of his deputy.
Deputy, not him.
And that disqualified him.
Exactly. So that should tell us something. So if the governor cannot be governor without the deputy, how come there is no assigned role for the deputy governor?
For the lawmakers, you think?
So that's what I'm saying. So they are in the former governors are in the National Assembly now. Former deputy governors are in the National Assembly. It's not in the interest of politics, but in the interest of the nation. This does not look pretty. A situation where, I mean, these are top government officials, for God's sake. These are people, if the governor is not able to make it to
but there is a reason why
they
would say that. I mean, because you cannot have 2 captains in a ship.
No. I mean, you said it, you know, quite succinctly the other time. The vice president has at least 1 or 2 roles. Agreed, understandable. So what is the role of the deputy governor? So maybe it's something that the National Assembly should take a second look at. And so they say, you know, we're paying this guy. It's a joint ticket. Without the deputy governor, the governor cannot become governor. So it is something that I think we should, because this does not look pretty.
Well, the governor has since directed that the deputy governor henceforth will request for media coverage of his activities from the Ministry of Communication and Orientation.
Okay.
So, means it's changed now. It won't be business as usual.
Well, I don't know. The governor that will assign the role, whatever meeting that the deputy governor is going to go to, isn't that supposed to?
Yeah, but he's saying if you need your media to cover, you have to request moving forward, not what you used to have before. Okay. However or whatever the arrangement is.
I want to believe that, there will be, very important sons of Edo who should be able to wade into what is happening.
Which of the sons? The ones in APC, PDP, Labour Party?
No, I'm sure there must be people who are neutral, who belong to no political. Edo is known to have elders whom people listen to.
Yeah. But they say this is politics.
And one of the biggest of them all, the biggest of the fishes,
the Oba himself.
Is the Oba himself. If this is becoming rather unwieldy, I see a role here for...
It is not becoming.
Even if he says, look, you can disagree with yourselves, but don't keep it in the public. Don't let people focus on that as opposed to governance in those states. Play your politics behind the scenes.
And maybe this is not relevant, but so... The deputy governor, the number 2 man in the state, because your media team couldn't come into the meeting, you walked away. What does that mean in simple English? I don't understand.
Okay, so taking a look at the dailies this morning. We'll start with Vanguard newspaper. Well, first fake meeting. Revive ailing economy. Tinubu orders ministers. Lists 8-point agenda. Gives ministers matching orders, promises not to rely on borrowing, assures of 50 million jobs, adds Nigerians have high expectations of us. Inaugural FEC meeting considers roadmap for the economy presented by Finance Minister Edun. So this is what a lot of people are looking forward to, actually. So they need to, well, maybe not that phrase again, because I hit the ground. They've already hit the ground, but, we need to now see how these policies will come through. But if he says, we're not going to rely on borrowing, okay, so what's going to happen?
What are the options? So it'll be very good to get a conversation with the Minister of...
Does it mean you and I have to pay something for it? You have to raise the money somewhere.
Well, this country, we know that we have resources.
But we're saving from crude already.
We know we have resources. We also know that we have, the wealthiest man in Africa is from this country. I'm not saying we should go and tax it, but it means that there is money in this country. We have people who are very wealthy.
The only way government gets money is through tax.
I'm not saying so. I'm just saying.
I guess perhaps one of the things that has been talked about is, look, we had a deficit of managing the resources that we have.
Indeed.
If you look at one of the things that the president said, at the NBA conference, look, we are blessed. And we should be able to manage our resources, including personnel, human and material resources well enough. Maybe that's where we are going now. And perhaps also looking in the direction of Dr. Taiwo Oyedele and his committee.
Yeah, so hopefully soon. Okay, well, investors losing confidence in the economy under Tinubu that's ascribed to the PDP. But in the meantime, yesterday we looked at the water that was going to be released by Cameroon, Lagdo Dam, but there's a piece of information here. We'll manage release of water from Lagdo Dam, ascribed to the federal government. So I think the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Water Resources, and several others, they had that meeting yesterday in terms of how they were going to prepare themselves, what they were going to do. And that's quite important because we did ask her as well, look, they need to do something about that. They need to be seen to be not being reactive now. You have to be proactive to ensure that these things it doesn't happen, then you're waiting. Maybe that's for NEMA, but these other ones, put your best foot forward.
Well, this Nigeria seems to give them an agenda on its front page. The bottom of the page talks about flood killing 2,700 houses submerged in Anambra and Bauchi. Front page of this Nigeria newspaper. MEMA allays fears over release of water from Lagdo Dam. That story, the details of it are on page 15. So, connection here, 700 houses submerged in Anambra and Bauchi.
No.
Indeed, especially when we were told that the flooding hasn't started happening, even though the Lagdo Dam has already been opened. It's been opened since the 14th. That's what the DG of the Hydrological Services told us on the program yesterday. It's been open since the 14th and they've been releasing steady water. And we're still in the middle of the rainy season. So we do hope that, you know, the leaders of the subnational pay attention to what is happening there and, you know, provide for the people to make sure that we don't lose lives as a result of this. Two killed already.
Absolutely. Well, talking about providing, the lead story, FG promises to end borrowings and targets 50 million jobs. What sectors? Does that include the 1 million jobs that Google promised?
Will that include those who just work for an hour a day?
All jobs are jobs, I guess. If MBS is already telling you that, so know what to expect. Even if you work for 30 minutes a day, they'll tell you jobs are jobs.
You'll be employed, eh?
As President presides over inaugural FEC meeting, Tinubu gives ministers marching orders to revive economy. One more, Nigeria, right beside the nameplate, 85% of Nigerian graduates have no digital skills. And we are thinking of 30 million, 80.
How did I get the 50 million jobs?
What did you say again?
85% of Nigerian graduates have no digital skills, according to a survey.
But they have phones.
Skills.
They have phones.
Not devices.
Well, they're on social media.
Yeah, skills to operate those devices.
Excuse me.
Well, it's according to a survey. What the survey says, you can find the details of on
What
page
do they
20.
mean by that? Maybe they need to
skills.
Exactly. Maybe they need to spell it out.
Well,
Okay, maybe they can code.
Page 20 could give. No, I don't think so.
Advanced one.
I don't think so. I don't think
that
so.
would be almost 97%. If it's
You mean 99?
Maybe not that advanced, but I mean, digital skills. People say if you have a phone, if you can operate a phone, then at least you have some skills.
Well, they said 85%.
And they are graduates.
85%.
Wow.
You know,
that's concerned.
We actually perhaps overestimate our capacities sometimes with these devices. For instance, it was my 14-year-old that was telling me that, you know, she was having personal issues and she used ChatGPT to find out stuff. Is that a digital skill? I don't know.
It is.
That's this Nigerian newspaper.
Knowing how to use it is a skill. Well, The Guardian is what I have for you this morning, and I kind of like the gist on the front page.
Okay.
I hope you enjoy it as well.
I know where she's going.
Unwieldy appointments of SSAs, SAs, PAs deplete lean resources in poor states. That's the lead story on the front page of The Guardian. It's a page 6 read, and you see right there some of the kind of appointments they are talking about. Examples. They don't name any names, but at least they tell you what they're talking about. Professor AAA, for instance, who is essay on graveyard matters.
Which state is that?
Kano State. You see this one. Wife of the Chief Security Officer to the President and Commander-in-Chief. I mean, that is there. Essay on women mobilization, Abia. Essay on happiness, Imo. Wife of essay on divorcees. You think that's ridiculous? I mean, we've seen since a whole ministry in Imo State in charge of happiness. Yeah,
what about essay on?
We've seen happiness over time. I mean, we saw former Governor Rocha Sokorocha create an entire ministry on happiness. And we now heard of the governor who is declaring happy hour. How far with that? I'm sure he'll certainly have an essay. There must be an essay on happy hour. I mean, we need to find out what's going on.
Don't forget that at some point, some survey in the world said Nigeria is the happiest country in.
So a whole ministry. But look, let's not detract from what the issue is. The issue right now is that we don't have a lot of money. We don't have a lot of states are struggling. Look at us. I mean, we borrowed ourselves no longer neck deep, eye deep in debt. We're eye deep in debt.
Submerged.
You know, we're submerged in debt. So states were just given 5 billion, according to some, they say it's 2 billion that they got, you know, from the federal government to support, you know, people in their states. And then you now have this retinue of SAs, PAs,
this is
why
SSAs.
The
media has to focus a lot on
the states
and their budgets and what is
they are joined.
Most of the time, the states seem to enjoy the fact that all attention or all eyes are always on the federal
government. Yeah.
So the attention, not just of media and all, civil society organizations, the people. Thankfully, Budget has this program where you can follow the money. Can we now urge Nigerians to follow the 2 billion or the 5 billion or whichever amount of money or resources?
Yeah, the state's got 5 billion.
Exactly.
Whether it's loan grants, you still got 5 billion. So we'll have to find out.
If you haven't, you will.
Exactly. Some people say it's only 5 billion. It's only 2 billion we've received.
And what about those states that say civil service come to work 2 times or 3 times a week?
3 times.
Does that still subsist?
Are we paying attention to them? We don't know. I mean, these are all the issues. But in the meantime, you have this retinue of aides whom nobody is policing. I think the president, he appointed 20, some of whom have become ministers. He since, I think, added more to the SA list. But how many SAs does an average governor have? How many governors can tell us, look, I don't have more than 10 SAs, and my cabinet is quite lean. I don't have more than, say, 20, 30 commissioners. Some states have as much as 40-something commissioners, Anyway, you'll find all of the detail. Let me not take away from the story. It's page 6. Just flip to page 6. They'll give you all of the gist there. And then there was this one that made around yesterday.
Sorry, well,
yeah.
I mean, so this one is in there. Friend of the friend of the governor.
We've seen that in the past. We saw that.
Yes.
The kind of things you see on cards. Complimentary cards.
Wow. That beats me.
Oh, dear Lord. Anyways, do we still use complimentary cards these days?
Well, look at those ones.
In some climes, most certainly.
Never know.
Wife of SA on divorcees. That's according to... Yeah, it's a thing.
They're celebrating that now?
They put that in Bolchi's.
SA, special advisor. Not special assistant, though.
I don't know, Chamberlain. Let's just go to page 6. And then look at this one. It was the talk of town yesterday. It was a rage on social media. OAU bans hugging, sitting on laps, skimpy dresses, tattoos, others on campus. I think it has to be University of Ife. It has to be OAU. Please, I think the alumni can do something about
the offenses again?
Hugging, sitting on laps, skimpy dresses, tattoos, others on campus. There was actually a retinue. I mean, I saw this. Yes, I saw it on social media, very honest. And I was saying, well, could they have added to this list? Is it really possible? But, I mean, look, there was a long list. Tattered jeans, backless dresses, heavy makeup, all manner of things.
No, I can take everything. It was hugging. Come on. Come on.
I'd like to read that to find out. So what informed that decision? Is it affecting their grades?
Page 7 is where you'll find it. I don't know anything about that. But
is that the ivory tower we're talking about?
I don't know. But, I think, maybe they think, because, private universities, they have their rules.
But that's not private.
Exactly. In fact, Chamberlain, let me make a confession. It was one of the reasons I said I would not go to a private university. Private universities were just starting out at the time I started university. And I remember my father saying, do you want to? And I said, no. I'm done with secondary school, I want to go to a university. I don't want a school with rules. I just want to be me. And I think that's where people usually find expression. They tend to express, what do we call youthful exuberance? All the things you want to be, in school, be it. When you're out, you now come and be somebody who's responsible. Look at me. Can you ever say, hey, Malcolm, you don't look responsible? But there's a time for everything. If you don't let them wear tattered jeans now, is it when they want to start work, they start to wear tattered jeans to work? I don't know. Page 7 is where you'll find details. I'm not encouraging indecency or certain kinds of, vices. But
I wonder what
usually, people express themselves very differently, and that's the age when students do it. Now, you can say, don't bring it to class, or you can say,
don't bring hugging to class.
No, don't bring... There's certain lecturers who tell you not to dress a certain way to their lectures. You must be dressed a certain way. There are certain lecturers who say that.
Is that supposed to be a church or mosque?
They just respect the lecturer. If you know you're there for instruction, respect it. But on campus, how will you regulate what is happening on campus? Come on, are you going to turn
this is
to police
institution,
or what? I don't know. Don't put cowries in your hair. Don't put... and when I saw that, I was like, OAU? Don't put cowries in my hair? Come on.
Oh, well, maybe. You said some page.
7.
Good.
7.
Bookmark it.
Look, I've stayed too long on The Guardian. There's so much more on the front page. As I said, it's a very interesting read this morning. Please pick it up.
No smiling.
And make matters worse, there is no OAU alumni here, so you can take this as beef from one
OAU, talk to us then. Wherever you are, talk to us.
There's a joke around it.
Let me check my mail and message.
There's a joke around it in my house. My dad went to OAU, so I'm not going to tell you what it is before they come for me.
Oh, okay. No harm.
So what's going to happen to the huggists?
They're banned.
If there's such a thing. Huggists.
Let's leave it there for The Guardian. Next.
Okay, well, you've already seen Daily Trust. President Tinubu unveils 8-point agenda, warns ministers against underperformance. We inherited very bad economy. Ejun, find short-term solutions to fuel subsidy removal. Forex crisis, experts tells FG. So if he says we inherited look at the qualification there, very bad economy. Figures are figures. Can't politicize figures. So he's just telling us how it is. So,
Inherited.
Very bad economy. So that's just what it is right there.
Inherited is from...
How much was... we know who was the former president. How much was dollar exchange to the naira when the government came in?
You know,
how much is it when they left?
On that one,
how did he get there?
On that one, we were on our way here.
If you know the story making the round in terms of how it got there, you will not, you will just...
I get you, but we were on their way there as far back as the 80s, simply because we weren't doing certain things right. We were pandering to certain whims and caprices that we weren't supposed to pander to, and we knew. So what we were supposed to do, for instance, we had been importing stuff into this country since before independence.
Yeah, but even at that, okay, well, I understand, but...
You know, for me, my position is, where are the nationalists that should have insisted that we built our home? At some point, we chased people, you know, out of Nigeria back to Ghana. See what happened. They decided to build.
Do you remember Abacha's time when he fixed the exchange rate and said, this exchange rate must not cross this?
He didn't
it must
allow
not cross
any
this.
influence from anywhere. So that's the kind of leadership that we need. Well, I mean,
the economy went on. The economy, I know they'll say those are different times, but that's what you get in democracy. Well, that ends it with a look at some of the dailies here this morning. Well, back in a moment, but don't forget, hey, let's get your perspective on that OAU matter, though. Don't go away.
The Nigeria Bar Association Conference is a gathering of learned minds, and this is the first plenary of the 65th edition in Abuja. Getting the economy right, decoding Nigeria's strategy for growth, diversification, inclusivity, and sustainability is the focus of the plenary session. Financial experts here lament the policy somersault of the previous administration.
Unfortunately for us, the last 8 years in this economy has been one of unmitigated economic disaster. And when I talk about disaster, I'm talking about disaster of serious proportions.
Over 130 million people are below empowerment line. It's not below the $1 that they talk about. You're talking about what practically families do need to take care of the basic needs outlined above in food, in healthcare, in education, in sanitation, in social security.
Other speakers prefer solutions. They also outline the challenges of doing business in Nigeria.
The average Nigerian is economically disadvantaged and is in misery. Our current happiness index as a country, when we're looking at all the countries in the world, we are at 114 in terms of position. It means that something and so many things are not working.
Unless we make efforts to identify the challenges and problems, acknowledge them truthfully, Because oftentimes you see government officials saying one thing and another thing is happening. So we must begin to identify these problems and at the same time accept that they exist truthfully.
Although the oil sector provides 95% of Nigeria's foreign exchange earnings and 80% of its budgetary revenues, stakeholders are unanimous on the need to make a shift from a mono to a diversified economy that promotes agriculture, manufacturing, and tradable services.
All right, welcome back. Well, yes, Mr. Ikeazo Akariwe joins us now. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria, he's a former first vice president of the Nigerian Bar Association, and the convener, We the People. So you can tell where that comes from. Good morning. Thank you for coming on. It's been a long time.
Yes, it has been. It has been about 4 years now.
Oh, dear. Okay. Good to see you again, then.
Same here.
Well, we know the NBA conference is going on. We know the president did address them. We also do know the Attorney General was there. But we're not going to start from there. Let me start with something that's a bit curious to us this morning. From the OAU, we just read that story that in the front page of some of the dailies, OAU bans hugging, sitting on laps, skimpy dresses, tattoos, others on campus. It looks as if there's some sort of campaign to ensure that students act right. And I know, of course, there might be laws that might have informed this. So I'm just wondering, so even if they had laws in the school that informs this decision, where does that sit in rights of people?
Yes, I'm thinking of the fifth habit in the book, The 5 Habits of Highly Successful People. The fifth habit is seek first to understand, then be understood. I'd like to understand the premises for the school taking such a decision, which completely infringes upon the rights of the children, freedom of expression. And then 2, I think the school should also seek to understand youth. When does a child wear all kinds of clothing, but when he or she is a child? No cowries in their hair, no hugging.
No dress or item that cover their faces?
Including masks.
Oh,
COVID masks or something, I don't
faces.
know. But it would be helpful if the school would not be high-handed, but just explain. This is why we are doing it, because the parents will be interested, we in the society will be interested. Otherwise, I think there's a diminishment of the rights of the kids. And then our schools are becoming glorified secondary schools, universities. When I was in the campus, I had hair at the time. Obviously. And my hair was in Jericho's. My classmates, schoolmates all know that.
Who would have thought?
It was in Jericho's. I went to classes like nobody spoke to me about this. Someday I came of age. I dropped it. Before I left school too, I dropped it. I began to comb out my hair. But I had fun. I thought it was great doing that.
Just hip.
Yeah, I thought it was hip. Of course, to go to the law school, you can't have your hair in Jericho's anyway. But you must let kids be. So I think
do you see a situation where the Nigerian students, nuns, for instance, would act?
If they react, they'll be called irresponsible. Is that what you are reacting over? I think they are between the devil and the deep blue sea, but I think they should speak up. This is disrespectful. Already we are a bit uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable with seeing law undergraduates, for instance, wearing uniforms. In virtually all faculties of law, white shirt over dark trousers. If you're female, white blouse over dark trousers. I say, where did this come from? Why? In our time, we wore jeans and wore whatever, and then we still became what we are. And a number of us, the new Attorney General is my classmate, So we all went to school, we were all boys. And then we came out of it all.
Did he have Jericho too?
No.
It'd be good to see that picture.
When I see him, we're going to ask him.
I wish I can find my photos so that I can't see photos from that era anymore. Yes.
Oh, shame.
Well, they say, according to the school, any violator of the dress code will be rusticated from the school for 1 semester, while, in addition, any student found with colored hairstyles, hair braiding for males, or spangled hairstyles for males will be rusticated for 2 semesters from the school. So
I mean, all manner of. I mean, I saw the whole list yesterday. I was saying maybe this is, maybe they're just trying to.
It's a revised handbook for the school.
Maybe they're trying to emulate the private universities. They do this all the time. There's no one telling them they can't do it or they can do it. If they were going to be talking about the rights of the students here and say this is an infringement on their rights, what about private universities?
Yes, I think it applies across board. With all due respect, I think they're going extremely too far. We are a secular nation. We are not a theocracy. And I think that I'm beginning to fear where we are headed. Let's allow liberty within bounds.
Yeah.
There are some things.
What if they say this is creating the boundaries? I mean,
yes.
Dress responsibly and come to school. This is the boundary we're creating.
That your braided hair shouldn't be multicolored. What's the meaning of that? I don't know the relevance of that to education. I think there should be liberty, especially as these kids, you behave like the Bible says. When I was a child, I thought like a child. I spoke like a child. Then when I became an adult, I put away childish things. There's a place for childishness. There's a place for being a child. You can't force a person to grow up before his time. Otherwise, the person might become like a musician, Michael Jackson, who at 50 was still a child. And his best friends were kids of 6, 7, because he lost his childhood. That may be an extreme example, but allow kids be. Let kids be kids. And then when they grow, they grow. Then you have, in fact, that's how you even have experience. That you've had experience, you've gone through life, and then you're able to advise other people based on your own experience. I think they're trying to jumpstart these children to a level of responsibility that a 19-year-old would not ordinarily have.
All right. Is there any way we can jumpstart the Attorney General of the Federation to ensure that he upholds the laws and then does things a lot differently? Because we know in a democracy, the judiciary is a very important fulcrum, very important leg in the scheme of things. And so, yes, they've taken their oath of office. They're in offices already. So in that conference and amongst your peers, what kind of conversation is going on now in terms of what is expected of him?
Yes. Lateef Fagbemi, SAN, was he the first to take silk in our class, to become SAN in our class. When we were 11 years at the bar, still trying to find our feet. He had taken the silk. That's how exceptional he is. And he took it at the age of 36 or 7. That's how exceptional he is. I don't mean to flatter him. He is a lawyer's lawyer. He is a square peg in a square hole, which cannot be said for everybody who has occupied that office. So there's a feeling of refreshment, a breath of fresh air that has just been introduced to the Ministry of Justice. The expectations are high, but I am also a bit cynical about such expectations. Of course, an Attorney General is not the head of state. An Attorney General will only work within the space allowed him by his boss. And if his boss clips his wings, then he will not be effective.
What do you mean? So as an Attorney General or as Minister of Justice?
Well, he holds both offices. So there'll always be the political interference.
Yeah, but in his capacity as Attorney General,
yes,
would he be limited?
He ought not to be. He ought not to be. And these are the major problem with the justice sector today is that Nigerians are cynical about the judiciary, about us lawyers.
Who can blame them?
Yeah, can we blame them? You can't blame Nigerians. We ourselves are truthful to ourselves. This sector is failing, to put it nicely. And I, as a lawyer, I will find it difficult to take somebody to court. I will find it difficult to file a suit in my name.
Why?
To redress my own rights, given what I know about the system. Number one reason, cases take forever. It is scandalous. Justice delayed is justice denied is a trite expression, but it is true. The first duty of Mr. Attorney General is call a stakeholders meeting, declare a state of emergency in the justice sector. What can we do to make sure that the cases in the court of first instance round up in a maximum of 24 months? I got judgment this year. The case that took 12 years in the High Court. 12 years in the High Court.
12 years.
3 years ago, I got judgment in the Supreme Court in a case that began in 1994 and ended in the Supreme Court. It was in the Supreme Court for 12 years, and judgment was delivered. My client was 84 years old.
Did he keep paying all that all the while?
No, I did that case pro bono because he had been ruined. Oh. He had been ruined by the case. A commercial transaction that went awry between him and a bank. 12 years in the Supreme Court. 12 years.
In the Supreme Court?
In the Supreme Court alone. So there's so much that needs to be done. We know the solution. I'll just try to break down the solutions. First of all, with the Supreme Court, it's not, Nigeria is the only Supreme Court where everybody can come to the Supreme Court. A tenant who has the funds to hold his landlord to ransom can actually start a matter in the magistrate's court and appeal and appeal and appeal over 30 years to the Supreme Court. You know, if you have the funds to hold your landlord to ransom, you don't come to the Supreme Court for every matter. The Supreme Court, well, in the U.S., we always refer to the U.S., maybe our constitution is patterned after theirs. But in the U.S., the Supreme Court decides what matters they want to hear. You only come by way of...
Well, because states have their own Supreme Court?
Well, not just that, but why are you bringing this matter? The law is settled here. There are 5 ways of proving your title to land. Why are you bringing an appeal, creating a 6th way? So the Supreme Court, they won't even hear you in the first
place. But isn't it lawyers that take you to the Supreme Court?
It's lawyers. But then,
I can't work in there myself.
Yes. So now there needs to be a body of rules that will make it impossible to bring some kind of cases to the Supreme Court. Since we ourselves, enlightened self-interest, have got to be paid some money. Is the only way I make a living. So I accept every brief, even though I know there's no hope in it. So Supreme Court, that's about the Supreme Court. But let's now go to the courts of first instance, the high courts. I'll come to the magistrates after, which are the grassroots courts. The high courts. I went to Vancouver. Please allow me to tell this story. 2010, International Bar Association had their conference in Canada, Vancouver. Vancouver is not even the capital of the state it is in. British Columbia is the province. And some of us got a bit bored with the conference, and we strolled away. Funke Adekoya SAN, Akeredolu SAN, now Governor Emeka Ngige SAN. We strolled away from the conference and strolled to the court. Lo and behold, the High Court, 60 courts in a complex. Opposite it, Magistrates Court, 60 courts. And we sat down in the court, a lady judge, 2 lawyers in the court, doing case one after the other, witnesses one after the other. And then when we were done, we went to meet the court administrator and asked, these 60 courts, are they for the province of British Columbia? No, he said, it's for Vancouver City alone. In Victoria, the capital, there's another 60 courts. So if we must resolve this matter of delay in justice, and delay in justice is one of the reasons for violence in this society, self-help. Why will I take this matter to court when I can get thugs to deal with you? As a landlord, I can remove the roof of your house, instead of going to court and you keep me there for 4 years. So society is breaking down because the justice sector is failing. So what needed to be done now is appoint too many judges. In the jurisdiction I practice, a judge has 500 cases. He can't even do 15 a year. Appoint many more. Lagos, for instance, should not have less than, if we want to be serious, Lagos is the commercial nerve center of Nigeria, 1,000 high court judges, 1,000.
Well, can he pay them? Because, only recently I had cause to hear, just how much magistrates in Lagos, which you just mentioned, earn.
Yes.
And I was scandalized.
Yes. And if you hear what the judges hear, you'll be more scandalized.
So if you're saying employ more,
yes,
can they pay them?
So that brings me to point number 2, which should be Lateef Fagbemi's agenda, salary of judicial officers. Now, I am a judge, for example. I have the power in my pen to say sentence to death, sentence to life imprisonment. I have the power to commute. Instead of life sentence or death, I make it 2 years within the framework of the law. I have the power to say pay damages of 2 billion, have the power to make it 2 million. Give me 500,000 a month. And then people who are in trouble, who know the power I wield, find a way to reach me, to my wife, to relation, to my father. They find a way to reach me. To my son, they get to know my son is in XY University. And my son tells me he got a gift like that. Even directly. Because I'm not sure that a judge can send his child to a private university in Nigeria. Unless you happen to have, and private universities are the equivalent of state universities I attended. There's been a decline in the state universities. Unless you are fortunate to have a wife or a husband who earns humongously. I know federal judges, I don't know if it's been increased, but recently I spoke to somebody who was very close to me, who became a judge 13 years ago. His pay hasn't been moved in 13 years. He's a federal judge in 13 years. In 13 years.
Saying that we are the ones that are we're creating the environment for judges to be corrupt. Is that what you're saying?
That is true. In fact, some have said cynically that the underpayment of judges is deliberate to make them weak. No judge, no high court judge will earn less than 10 million naira a month, 120 million naira a year. And Maokwe asks, can we afford it? Yes, we can afford it. Look at what they take at the National Assembly. Look at the retinue of aides. Some governors have 700 aides. I'm not exaggerating.
700?
In the last dispensation, I know states where there were 700 aides, earning like 200,000 a month and so on. A job for the boys. We can afford it. Nigeria can afford it. Justice is so important. The rule of law is the fulcrum of civilized society. You must invest in it.
So when you heard the president say he's going to have a comprehensive justice reform, I'm assuming these 2 points that you have made are on the list. What other things do you think are crucial for that justice reform to represent the true rule of law that we want?
Quality in appointment. Enough of appointments based on man to man. Enough of appointments of wives of political functionaries. Enough of that kind of appointment. If the wife is qualified, is good, fine. But we know of too many cases. I have been on the Shari appointment committee in my local branch of the Bar Association for several years now, and we keep recommending names, and they are accepted in breach. We know fine lawyers, fine, hardworking boys and girls who are smart and who can deliver. And then we recommend. They don't give you a list of 3 people, 5 people, and one is the wife of commissioner of this person. The other one is the wife of local government chairman. And however good they are, we didn't recommend them. So if you take my advice and appoint 1,000 judges in Lagos, and 500 in Anambra, and 500 in Kano, and you appoint people who cannot do the job, it's a waste of time.
There was this suggestion made, I don't remember the fellow and the coinage, was some kind of interim judges of sorts, like someone of your esteem, for instance, would be assigned to certain cases, get the job done, and you are not a permanent judge, you just, I don't know what they call it. Is that something that could be advised?
Yes, in fact, it existed in colonial times and in the First Republic, where senior lawyers could handle a category of cases. You're not a judge, but then you sit in a capacity. In the UK, it still happens. And it's okay. That's out-of-the-box thinking. At my level, you ask me to handle cases of less than 3 years imprisonment and what have you. How will I take a bribe? My level. By the way, I am 61 today.
Congratulations to you.
So when I say at my level, I've been practicing law for 38 years.
Fantastic.
So if you give me such a responsibility,
let's take a break on that note then, but we'll be back and continue our conversation with Mr. Ike Akariwe. Don't go away. Come back to Sunrise Daily. Well, trying to set some agenda for Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Attorney General and Minister of Justice for the country. Mr. Ike Akariwe, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, who happens to be his colleague, also trying to see what can be done to ensure that we have improved services.
Indeed. And we noticed that the Attorney General, shortly after he took office, the first thing, even when he was being screened, one of the things he talked about was the rule of law. I mean, even at the conference where he addressed his fellow lawyers, he spoke to the rule of law. For you as a lawyer, what will constitute upholding the rule of law? I know you've talked about how, judges need to be paid, we need to do something about the state of our courts, etc. But precisely when we're talking about the rule of law, upholding the rule of law, what would that mean for you?
Yes, it's quite a mix of many things. First of all, the state has got to obey judgments of courts. Failure to obey court orders has weakened the justice delivery institution. The judge says release this detainee, and government observes it in breach. It's so bad. We are becoming a jungle. The man on the street will not obey court orders because government does not obey. Government does not see the nexus between its disobedience and law and order in the society. So that's the first thing about the rule of law. Because what does rule of law mean? As the name says, rule of law. The law rules. Man does not rule. The whims and caprices of man do not rule. What rules is the law. And if you don't think the law is good enough, amend it. But for as long as this is the law, follow the law. So that is the first thing. Government must take the risk and obey the rule, the orders of court. Look at President Jonathan. For the first time in Nigeria, there was obedience to court orders. For the first time, and government was not diminished.
First time?
To the best of my knowledge. To the best of my knowledge, there were, before the government of Obasanjo, who I admire greatly. I admire him greatly. His capacity to manage the country was fantastic. But one thing that stood out, he disobeyed.
What about government of Yaradua?
Well, he was there for too short a time. I will, whatever I credit to Jonathan, I credit to him, because I think it was a continuum, and he was a fine man. So that is the first thing that must be fixed. But the rule of law is an architecture. For us to have a reform in the rule of law sector, certain things must be put in place. First of all, like I've already mentioned, appointment of high-quality individuals. Secondly, there's need for the courts to go digital. In 2023, a judge is writing longhand. The witness is speaking, and he's writing longhand. And he's saying, hold on, and the witness has to pick it bit by bit. A judge is supposed to be studying the demeanor of the witness. When the witness is being untruthful, perhaps maybe he blinks a bit more, or something happens. He doesn't do that, he's writing. Why don't we record? Why don't we?
I was actually surprised because
digitalize the court.
First time I got to the court in 1993, thereabout, Justice Okpayagbe's court in High Court 3 in Lagos. I was shocked. He was writing. He said, hey, hold on. I thought, how much? Then I had to just, at that time, and how much more?
You said 1993.
Yeah.
30 years now.
I went to court very recently. I mean, even though I hope I'm never invited again. But I was in court, and that's what I also noticed in the High Court here in Abuja.
Yes.
Which looked rather modern. They had, seats were comfortable. There was air conditioning, etc. But I noticed that the judge was writing longhand.
Longhand. That is the major undoing of that job. And the job of a judex in Nigeria is one of the most oppressive jobs.
Doesn't that
think of writing for 5 hours every day, 5 days a week?
Doesn't that also speak to capacity or a lack of it? Because it was this morning that we saw one front page of one of these dailies that's 85% of Nigerian graduates do not have digital skills. Typewriting is a lot of work. for something. So I'm wondering, doesn't that also speak to capacity to be able to do those things that you're talking about? Use those facilities, even if in place?
Well, the facilities are not in place in the first place. So yes, we have a capacity problem, but let's have the facility in place. Nature abhors a vacuum. So if you put the facilities in place, people will learn. But we do need to have facilities. A senior lawyer went to court in Florida and just followed his friend, a lawyer from Nigeria. And that day was the day they were going to read the judgment between Al Gore and George W. Bush, the judgment in the case. And he sat in the court waiting for the judges to come out and begin to read judgment for 3 hours. And then the clerk, of course, stood up and said, "Gentlemen, the judgment is ready. Go to www.this.that and download the judgment." And everybody brought out their flash and put right in the court into the place provided for it. And they had the judgment. Today in Nigeria, our judges still have to read judgments for 2-3 hours. The job is oppressive. So if we're talking of rule of law, we must go to the basics, the fundamentals, and solve them. We need to digitalize, and Nigeria is rich enough. I refuse to accept that this country is poor. In spite of what has happened, there's still enough money. There's still plenty of waste. Let's invest in the judiciary. Excuse me. Even the economy is affected by a poor judiciary, by a poorly run judiciary. A couple of years ago.
I noticed, just before you give that anecdote, I noticed that the NBA included the economy in their discussion. Yesterday, the economy was priority, and I was wondering, okay, lawyers are interested in the economy as well. I mean, is that also affecting the rule of law?
Yes. There's a link between the rule of law and the economy. I'll just give you a simple example. A German firm wanted to invest in Nigeria. And this is just one isolated case. It happens all the time. And they did their due diligence, consulted lawyers, consulted the NBA. I was vice president of the NBA at the time, and they wanted our input. And they asked a very simple question: how long do we need to get justice in the court of first instance? How long does your case last? And we said, okay, about 5 years on the average.
Whoa.
Courts of appeal, if somebody appeals, how long will that take? And we said just between 2 and 3 years, which is not true. It's not true. Supreme Court, we said, well, maybe about 5 years. We can't invest in this country.
It's too long.
Yes. Now, that's the economy. And we understand they went to Ghana. I don't know whether Ghana is better, but we understand they went to Ghana.
But isn't
because
that why
they are
we have
realistic.
arbitration? I mean,
well, not every case is arbitrable. And even where they are, you still can appeal. If you're not satisfied with the judgment, the decision of the arbitrators, you go to the Court of Appeal. It ends up at the Court of Appeal. And now, how many justices do the Court of Appeal Act says 100 judges. The Court of Appeal, 100 judges. And right now, they're probably about 72. Retirements, that is something, forgive my language, something irresponsible about the last federal administration was that judges retire and they don't get replaced. Nguta died 3 years ago. He's not been replaced. Judges die, they retire, they're not replaced. Right now, there's 11 vacancies or thereabout in the Supreme Court. So, when you appoint 11 at a swoop, they don't even get the opportunity to understudy those who have been there. Because before they know, they're already doing the job, the main job. But if, when one person goes, you put in another immediately, then what's going to happen? That person now understudies the people who have been there. But you appointed, last time they appointed was 8 at a swoop. 8. And of the 8 appointed, one has died. One has died. About 2 have retired. One is retiring on Sunday, another is retiring in December. No appointments.
While all of this makes a world of sense, it's only natural to consider, is there a role for states in this? Is there an intermediary role for states in it so that some cases don't have to go as far as you said the other time as maybe the appeal court or the Supreme Court at the federal level? Do we also have the same situation or, stagnation, I can use the word, at the state's level?
Yes, it's my view that we need at this stage, well, in the First Republic, which was which we need to return to, in a sense. We need to return to the principles of the First Republic. The regions had Western Region Court of Appeal. The regions had their Court of Appeal. Now, states don't have their Court of Appeal. States have to appeal to what ideally is the Federal Court of Appeal. Now, why won't states, we can even make it zonal, the geopolitical zones. Why won't states have courts of appeal? Why won't we even have Supreme Court at that zonal level? The 6 zones have their Supreme Court. They have a federal Supreme Court. Then certain matters, for example, land matters. The land, the culture around land in the southeast, for instance, is vastly different from the culture in the far north. But then you may now bring as presiding justice of the Court of Appeal, Enugu, Owerri, Awka divisions.
If we have Supreme Courts in zones,
yes,
are governorship elections supposed to go there, given the influence that these governors who have funds, the pockets wield?
No, the Constitution will spell out what should be the jurisdiction of each of the courts. I'm looking ideally at things like land issues, and what have you. Constitutional electoral issues should go to the federal level. But land, for example, why should land matters get to the Supreme Court? Why? Now, the culture in Nnewi concerning land is vastly different from the culture in Ibadan concerning land. And then perhaps whoever sits in the Supreme Court or in the Court of Appeal, none of them is originally from Nnewi or Ibadan or what have you. I guess so we need to really break down this thing. Let's have more courts at that level, and let's have jurisdictions. The state jurisdiction should be different from the federal jurisdiction.
If he were to implement this, how long does it take?
To implement this?
Supreme Court in zones.
How long will it take to implement it?
To get all of those up and running.
The day the National Assembly agrees to pass the bill, that day it becomes law. If the National Assembly does it in 1 month, in 1 month it's law.
Because where I was going, I mean, something that Chamberlain said is actually very, very correct, and you can confirm that one way or the other, and that is the fact that governors at the state level at this moment have tremendous influence. And so if a chief judge or the judiciary in the state, for instance, are trying to do the right thing, if I can say it that way, the governors may are said to have some significant way of influencing them, conversely. In an ideal situation, can we insulate the judiciary, be it at the local government level, the federal level, or the state level? Can we insulate? Is there a way to insulate the judiciary from the influences of the executive as we currently have it? Because from what you were saying earlier, I mean, what happens in other climes, it doesn't happen that way. So is there a way to insulate the judiciary from the whims and caprices of any executive or even the legislature?
Yes, there is a way, and we have made there's quite some mileage on that. Because the position has been, the Constitution has always said that all monies which belong to the judiciary should be handed over to the head of court. But the state chief executives have always observed that in breach. I believe that President Buhari signed some executive order, or there's a constitutional amendment. Quite frankly, I'm not sure, but there's something that has happened that makes it imperative for these things to be handed over to the heads of court. He who is the piper dictates the tune, and because the chief judges had to go to the governors for stationery, for electricity generating sets and the like, the governors seem to have them by the balls, if you permit my language. So what we need further at this stage is to insulate the judiciary by removing from the governor the sole right of being determinant of chief judge. I mean, who the chief judge should be, for instance. As it is now, a judge could, and it happened even a few months ago in one of the states, will skip his number one judge. As happened in the state in which I practice, the most senior judge was skipped for the second. And the governor told anybody who would listen that, well, this one is not friendly, this one. So that is a problem in itself. But the Constitution can be tweaked in such a way that it becomes compulsory, whoever is the most senior.
How about the financial autonomy? Sorry.
Yes, financial autonomy is where I went to initially, that the governors have observed it in breach.
But I asked about financial autonomy because you said earlier that the pay is ridiculous. And Maukwe also confirmed, reminded us of the case about, magistrates, even customary courts. If the pay is that ridiculous, it only speaks to how easily compromisable they are, doesn't it?
Well, this is an area that interests me because I know that the budget for the federal judiciary, Buhari's last budget was 150 billion naira for the federal judiciary, and to the extent that the federal judiciary, the federal government also assists the states. And I know that since Tinubu became the president, he approved another 35 billion. But I know that there's been 185 billion naira approved. So the question is, 185 billion naira should really go a long way as far as pay is concerned. But it does appear as if these monies are also utilized for capital projects. Like I know there's quite a number of courts being built in Atikoyi. There's a new federal high court complex, multi-storied, being built and what have you. But I don't have the facts, to be frank with you. But I believe that what is even being budgeted now should be able to change the coloration of salaries. And I said earlier, and I wasn't saying it lightly, I wasn't being frivolous, no high court judge should earn less than 10 million naira a month, even based on this 185 billion naira that was released, based on the current number of the judges. So I don't know what is going on there, that in spite of such humongous amounts being released, the judges are still, in the view of the bar, underpaid.
But that is changing
10 million
now.
naira a month.
Yeah, but I thought that changed. That's part of what the...
That's what he's proposing.
Yes, but there was a directive to that effect. I think revenue mobilization are looking into that. I remember when I asked...
Yes, indeed. They say they're looking into that, yeah, because I think they're also looking at...
The court ruled on that.
For governors and a number of other people.
Went to court on that matter. You remember the case?
Yes, I know that case.
About 10 million there.
Yes. Now, look, they should stop looking into it together with the executive. They should isolate the judiciary.
So that's where that was the only case we could make. I mean, when there was an outcry over the review of emolument which the RAMFAC was undertaking, we had to remind people that it also included the emoluments and salaries of judicial officers, which for some people, it was now a bit awkward. Would you then say that you shouldn't also look at that of judicial officers who might have no other source of income and who are not exactly your regular public officials?
And remember, when a judge retires, he cannot practice anymore. When you retire, that is it. You can't go back to the courts to practice. If it will help,
but
RAMFAC, let me say this. In the UK, the Chief Justice of the UK earns more than the Prime Minister. There's hardly any of the first world nations where the Chief Justice doesn't earn higher than the other arms of government because they know what this is about. Now, I gave a scenario earlier on. You have a situation where somebody has the power of life and death. Somebody has the power to commute or to remit. Somebody can say, pay all these damages of 20 billion naira. Or he can reduce 20 billion naira claimed, 200 million. There's a lot of power in the pen of the person. Pay the person so attractively that the person will not be distracted at all. Pay the person an elitist pay that removes the person from the demands, the grind of daily living. We are a society with an extended family structure.
Very true.
And everybody calls you my lord, my lord, my lord. And the man in the village believes that you are called my lord because you are really a lord and you have a fat bank account. You can't even solve your problems.
If I could just read this out,
yes.
Maybe RMAFC will have to explain where they are on this matter.
Yes.
In that particular judgment, which was delivered by Justice Obaseki Osahe, he ordered the government to pay a monthly salary of 10 million naira to Chief Justice of Nigeria, 9 million to other justices of the Apex Court, President of the Court of Appeal, 9 million, while other justices of the Appellate Court, 8 million, Chief Judges of both Federal and State High Courts, 8 million, while judges of the Federal, State High Courts, 7 million. Is this what the Attorney General can actually...
That judgment was last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, before fuel subsidy...
2022.
Well, 2022.
July 2022.
Yes, before the economy went the way it has gone. And I just...
So there should be any more than this?
The Chief Justice, in my view, will not earn anything less than 20 million naira, twice that amount. 240 million naira a year. Place the Chief Justice in such a position. Place the judges of the Supreme Court of Appeal. How many are they? High Court. We've been talking about the Superior Court of Justice. Remember the magistrates. Okay. The magistrates are the grassroots courts. They're the ones who handle, this person stole yam, this person stole some corn, this person stole phone, recharge card. They need to be paid also reasonably. And this is what the new Attorney General should make a priority. Something must be... Isolate the judiciary. Pay them well in such a way that there will be no further temptation except to one who is perhaps, what's that word now, amoral. Only an amoral individual.
Okay. Just one more thing, there's an inquiry. Someone's trying to find out, look, is it that they're wondering how judges usually grant orders to stop the police, the DSS, the EFCC, ICPs from investigating certain persons, perhaps usually certain big personalities in the country?
I think that that is a bit of an exaggeration. Those orders are often interim orders. Those orders are perhaps to last a maximum of 14 days. They are not made in perpetuity. And if made in perpetuity, that would be very bad.
All right, Mr. Kazakari, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and former NBA's first Vice President. Thank you for coming on today. Good to see you again, and happy birthday, above all else.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
All right, so we'll be back.
Such as this.
Yes, indeed. We're back in a moment. Stay on with us.
Arriving for the inaugural Federal Executive meeting of this administration taking place in the Council chamber. As they find their way to their seats, they exchange pleasantries. Once the president arrives, the program kicks off. The president makes clear his expectation that this cabinet create an economy that will serve Nigerians.
The expectation is high. And there's a tough time right now. We must work hard, commit ourselves, and create a buoyant economy that will serve every Nigerian.
He also highlights the policy agenda of his administration.
We must unlock the energy and natural resources of this country. We must start to produce for ourselves, dig ourselves out of the hole, focus on education, healthcare, make social investment.
The meeting then continues behind closed doors. Hours later, some of the ministers briefed journalists on the outcome of the meeting.
Mr. President's vision includes the idea of harnessing the human capital of our youthful population to achieve the prosperity for everyone, to mobilize the social capital that is in our country, uniting us as a people to drive this transformation that is his direction for the administration.
We also examined the President's 8-point agenda. And those are basically food security, ending poverty, economic growth and job creation, access to capital, particularly consumer credit, inclusivity in all its dimensions, particularly as regards youth and women, improving security, improving the playing field on which people and particularly companies operate, rule of law, and of course, fighting corruption.
His Excellency has mandated that we should improve, and we are working on improving the number of jobs created, and this is going to be through revamping the MSMEs and improving industrialization in Nigeria. Mr. President, during his campaign, he promised 50 million jobs, and that's our target.
So coming out of this meeting, the ministers say they're energized and they're going out to make Nigerians feel the positive impact of this administration's efforts as soon as possible. From the presidential villa, Lanre Lasese, Channels Television News.
Welcome back. Yes, Bishop Isaac Idahosa, vice presidential candidate of the NNPP for the 2023 elections, joins us this morning. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today. I thought politics was over, but
no, politics.
I see you're still wearing this.
Never over. Never over. We still wear this Konkosia. You see, Konkosia is beyond politicking. It's an ideology and having to do with affecting and impacting the masses. So even after campaigning or electioneering, you still go ahead doing the same thing.
I find it interesting that you're not wearing this cap, because even during elections, you didn't wear it.
No, I did.
I mean, it was like you tried to maintain your own identity.
No, but the cap was always on.
No, remember, at the time yesterday, it was in the jacket.
Maybe that was jacket. You could have worn suit and put on...
if you were India, you would.
Exactly.
but having seen the way things are going on now, particularly the policies of government and the economy, I know that almost every party, I think including your party, also said they were going to do something about fuel subsidy. And having seen the impact of what's going on now, it means if any party were in power, this might have been what they would have faced. So when you see this playing out, what do you think? What goes on in the minds of yourself?
I would have preferred where they would have invested whatever palliative in infrastructure, things that would have brought better dividends than maybe, and I pray there will be proper management of the 5 billion to different states and governments to be able to reach out to the grassroots. The problem is not with the funding, but the management. And so where you see you want to be responsible, but you don't want to be accountable. So where the problem is, the masses must feel the government. And of course, from the center, it couldn't be done alone. It has to be spread to the local governments and to the wards. So we'll look out to see how this will play out.
You know, for instance, I mean, you also lead and manage several people in the ministry. And the thing about this is when you see young people wanting to leave the country or put in place measures, in fact, there were those who thought, okay, after the elections, they'll decide. But even at that, people still have their plans, they're still going away. So you might have had an interaction or two. What do you think was the overarching decision or challenge or complaint or issue that they had with the country upon them taking that decision to leave?
Things are getting much harder, not without us stepping into the matter to saying, oh, things will be better. We keep, anchoring their lives on hope, things will be better. As the more we preach the hope message, the more things get bad for them. But you see, it's a process. The government have taken definitely through right policies, and it's going to bite. And after the bite, after the pain, then the gains will begin to come. But not too many people are patient enough to watching the gains come.
Doesn't that also speak to, my apologies, doesn't that also speak to how we communicate, these things to the people? For instance, take the example of the construction industry. If you want to build on bare ground, it's cheaper. But if you want to rebuild on a facility where there already is an infrastructure, you have to not just demolish the building, you have to root out the foundation of that building to put in a new one. It'll take longer, it'll be more costly,
that's right,
and it'll be more painful. Now, the challenge is not what you are doing. You're talking about, converting the monies and everything, resources, into building infrastructure for the people. Naturally, it'll take a little longer. But people need something, as we say on the streets, urgent 2K. Something quick and immediate that people can say, okay, well, while you're dealing with, sorry?
25K.
So while you're dealing with the larger, medium to long-term issues, I need to survive before I can get to that level. Now, you have talked about a crucial thing about, the management of these resources at the state level. The challenge is the monitoring of it. The challenge is the execution of it. And this is not just something that is happening now. This is perennial. The 2020 experience is still very, very fresh. So what would be your recommendation as to how people can measure and ensure that these things actually get to the people?
Monitoring.
How?
Accountability.
How?
Now, you see,
the federal government has given it. The federal government cannot monitor the states, can they?
They can. You see, you can monitor if you want to monitor. You see, we throw out things out there without necessarily putting devices in place to check meat and censors those who have been affected rurally, and then the grassroots. 2 weeks ago, Andy said, I just decided to give out 10,000 to as many. I put it on Facebook, Instagram, and I censored it. How? I didn't need to know you to do that. I just at random picked. And we ensured those who knew me never got it. Those who never knew me from Adam, in fact, majority even from the north, got it, invested it. And then we want to find out what they can do with 10,000. You'll be amazed that some have just started. Within 3 weeks, I've been able to make some little money. So those who have made some money, we're looking forward to adding some. So they are able to make a living. Things are very bad. We have been pastoring. Just Sunday, we were celebrating our 34th church anniversary. We know how many we fed. It's not enough to keep giving you food, fish. They will teach you fish, acquisition, investing in human capital development. Now, again, the policies have been so far so good, but we must give it time. Now, the palliatives are good, but the monitoring effect, we must put mechanisms in place, devices in place to ensuring that these monies get to those.
I can't seem to get past this look. I've been staring at you since, and there is pardon me.
What's up with this cap?
It is rude to stare, so pardon me. But I also remember that there has been some controversy, and I really hate to take you back, but there's been some controversy over the NNPP and how it is structured. Thankfully, you have a state. And you have a hugely popular state, Kano, which we'll come to in a moment. But, people have been saying, but the NNPP should not be synonymous with Kwankwansia. That Kwankwanso is one person. Yes, he is a colossus within the party, but he cannot just overtake the party. Do you think that he's overtaking?
He never overtook the party.
Do you think he's overtaking the party with everybody dressed like this?
No.
This becoming synonymous with the NNPP?
This is not forceful. This is willingly. Kwankwansia is in the heart. Like I've told you, the ideology endears him to as many as myself. Now, he's never hijacked the party. He has no intention hijacking the party. What we hear in the public domain are just what people want to fabricate. They want to say what they feel like saying.
But there are people within the NNPP who say
I'm telling you, there are people, even in the 12, we have Judases there who really don't understand the policies.
So the people who are saying these are Judases?
They are not Judases, but I'm just telling you that they are saying what they feel like saying. Kwankwaso never stood or never told me I was his running mate, never sat me down to say I'm hijacking the party or I'm colonizing the party. No.
Okay.
It's not so. Like today, we have a net meeting for 12 noon to be able to iron out things. In the family, you have all manner of people, misunderstandings here and there. And the key thing there is dialoguing and expressing your mind. Pour out your mind and let's then strike a balance. Those
are some of the things I'll be ironed out.
Yes, that's very true.
Okay, so let's go back to the economy. I mean, in Kano State, where we've seen new governor take over. In fact, when he took over, one of the things he started by doing was demolition. People were wondering what's going on here. Is this a government of demolition or demolishment, as the case might be? And so there have been questions as to what precisely the plan is, because people are hoping that one of the things that they will see with the political parties is that whatever it is that they have preached that they were going to do at the center, they will have an opportunity to execute even more brilliantly at a state level. It should be very obvious when they've done it. So for a state like Kano, are you people keeping an eye? Because I know that, well, you're in Abuja now, you're going to have a NEC meeting. Is Kano going to be one of the areas, where you're going to be, putting some pressure, because you've talked about monitoring, on the governor to say, look, you are a standard bearer right now, and there's going to be a lot of attention on how it is that we also handle the local economy of Kano. What sort of measures would you be saying that the government of the NNPP will be doing differently from what we see in other states?
That's already we are doing things differently. But then these were the things that were in our manifesto when we were campaigning. Public spaces that were hijacked or misused would be regained for the true original plan for Kano. And that's exactly what you found us doing in Kano. When you go to Kano, it's a different ball game to what we hear outside Kano. People are so excited that these changes you find, like the demolition, you find within 1 week of our government in place in Kano, were the things we promised the people. that once we attain, by God's grace, a place of position, these are the things. And those things made them one of the reasons they voted for us.
He's likely going to be distracted if he continues like that.
No, but if you watch closely now, there's time for everything. I'm not sure demolition is still ongoing now. And it's not like going round about demolition everywhere. No, there are so many specific places which he has already done. And now you can see governance is going on. People are happy. You know, the essence of governance is to make people happy. When things happen well, they become happy, and they are fully in support of the government.
So what's going on with the principal? I mean, yeah, we know elections are over. He's not in court, is he?
No.
You know, Labour,
we never
PDP.
went to court from inception.
Why is that?
We just chose not to go to court. He's the one who accepts the will of God. You remember when we lost in Kano 2019, never had to go to court. Even this time around, we just chose, it was a decision made not to go to court.
We also know that the government did say they were going to form a government of national unity. The PDP, I think the FCT minister did say he consulted with his party before taking that decision. So is NNPP still perhaps looking out? Has they been reached out to? Are they willing to support or help, suggest to the government on what to do moving forward?
Everybody, not just NNPP, we all have got equal access. So we have got equal access to the government, but we don't have equal crave to engaging the government. I'm sure you are aware that my principal, Dr. Kwankwaso, and His Excellency have been long-time friends. 1999 set of governors. So they've been on there. And even last week here, Thursday, they were together at the villa, discussing how to ensure national progress.
You know, one of the things that, troubles my mind all the time when we talk about governance and impact on people is the diminished trust deficit between the government and the governed. We ask this question all the time, not just to make the news, but to let government know, and for people like you to also speak to how we can begin to, refund the trust accounts of government with the people. Because you said the other time, a huge number of people continue to leave this country, partly for the fact that they do not trust anything that has the word government as its end, be it local, state, or federal. So how do we begin to build back this trust deficit?
It takes time, and you see, trust takes time to be built. Just one mistake or a lie can destroy trust you have built over the years. When the government says this and they do same, integrity is the watchword. And where you find fairness, you find equity, you find justice, then that's what brings about trust. But when things are lopsided, you find nepotism like it used to be, You create room for people not to trust you by you saying one thing and doing another. I have watched again carefully 1, 2, 3 things that the government said and then retrieved their words. So that means to say, if a government has a listening ear, it builds trust through. Let the voices of the people be heard. Like the president would say, let the poor breed. Now the policies, right now the poor, the poor are believing God for a better tomorrow, a greater tomorrow. But trust is built with time. And not just what you preach, but what you do. You can preach all you know, but you reproduce who you are. The moment you begin to do, put in place, implement what you have said you will do, trust begins to build up.
But, you know, building trust with the people is one thing. Building trust with young people, that's another kettle of fish altogether. Go on X right now and you will see trending stories, and they are not always pleasant. So engaging the young people, who form like between 60 and 70%, depending on whose data you are looking at, of Nigeria, the entire population of the country. Engaging these young people is not going to be done the way it was done in 1984. It has to be done completely uniquely. It has to be different altogether. So what steps would you recommend if you could do something about engaging young people?
Get them involved in governance. Get them fully involved in governance. And I pray that the next time they will choose Minister of Youth should be a youth. That will go a long way to letting them know, yeah, they have stake in this government. Let me tell you something. When you are outside the corridor of power, you wouldn't know what plays out. When I was growing up, there was this story of a commentator, football commentator, who was commentating and condemning every person possible on the field of play. So at about halftime of the game, they went to find out who this commentator is, who never gives credit to anybody on the field. They discovered he was a disabled person. He can't even play. So when you get involved, you will now discover the pressure in governance, where you need to govern Nigeria requires so much prayers. And that's what we are fully involved in doing and asking God to really, really guide our leaders. And instead of complaining or tearing down the government, misrepresenting the government, we should find out what and where we can get involved. We can get involved too when we are given the space. That is when the youths are given the space in governance, you'll be able to now affect other youths. But when you leave them out of the scope of events, they'll begin to think differently. But when they get involved, that's the easiest way to build trust in you, that you count, and we need you now.
I talk to one because I mean I could go on and on. The young people is a passion for me and for a good number of us that are here because we call them the leaders of tomorrow. I heard that song by Tosin Jegede, I think.
Yeah, the leaders of tomorrow.
Thank you. Yes.
Tomorrow.
They are the leaders of tomorrow was in the 80s, and the leaders of tomorrow are still struggling. And now the same thing that was being said to them in the 80s is the same thing that is being said to them today. The trust is gone, confidence is gone, and as you noted, as you are very well aware, a good number of us are aware, young people continue to troop out of this country en masse.
Within 1 month, like I did mention before we came on, 54 that I'm aware of left the soil of this nation. Why? Looking for greener pasture. Now, with the policies in place, of course we do know things will get better, but they are not patient enough. The youth want it now. Now, the youth of tomorrow, they never come. Power is not given, it's taken. Get involved. Look at, for instance, I just chose to, I got involved. I mentioned to you the way I got into politics and became the running mate to Dr. Kwankwaso. Now, you see, it has broadened my capacity. It has helped me to see differently. And again, my pastoral work, it has helped me to know much prayers are needed for government and in governance. The youth would do better if you grant them chance and allow them make their mistakes. We need the elderly, we need the youth. The two together, when they synergize, we'll have a better place.
The challenge that you will find there naturally, Bishop, is the youths in Lagos are not the same as the youths in Benin, not the same as the youth in Kebbi, not the same as the one in Kano. the orientations are completely different. We were talking about some cultural or, barriers or differences earlier before this program started. So conversing with them, engaging the young people is going to take some scientific skill that has to take some time to really think through and execute in a way that can achieve what you're talking about. So in terms of these specifics, it's not just something that we can leave to the federal government. It's something that has to do with the states as well. Well, a few of them are already in government at the state level, but everyone just wants to chase what they can have first. Is there a way to change that orientation? The Minister of Information and National Orientation was talking about that.
Mohammed Idris
is there a way to change that narrative, particularly at the state level where we have, the people living?
You see, orientation, like you did mention, is everything. When you void proper information, you can misunderstand it, or then when you misunderstand, you misreact. Now, when you keep hammering something, what you keep hearing, you begin to believe. What you keep believing, you become. In the process of orientating and bringing orientation, proper information, here and there, things will change. You see, even faith comes by hearing. What you keep hearing and you see them doing what they said they will do, changes will come. Okay. Like you said, it's unique. Okay.
No, go ahead.
Youth are, they are unique from state to state, they differ. Find out what is unique about them, and those who not necessarily have got certificates, skill acquisition, like what we did in Kano, and that's what ended my principal, Dr. Kwankwaso, to us. Many who was able to raise different technical colleges and gave some little funds to start off businesses. And when they begin to do things, they have job security, food security. They will reason well. A youth that is hungry can be angry sometimes.
Very true. Well, let's take a look at, what the role of the NNPP is going to be. You've talked about how you didn't go to court. That's not exactly the style of, one of the key leaders of, let me say, the presidential candidate of your party. But one will be wondering, because you've also talked about how he's friends with the current president, and he's been to see him a few times. So one will wonder, are you going to be playing any role around opposition in this government? In this dispensation? Will the NNPP be criticizing openly, because don't tell us you're criticizing privately, will you be criticizing openly policies of government that you do not agree with? I'll give you an instance. This morning we're looking at Vanguard newspapers, and right on their front page, investors losing confidence in economy under Tinubu. That's according to the PDP. We hope to see some critique or some criticism?
Yes, of course.
From the NNPP.
I did mention about the palliative right even here, that we would have done it differently by investing in infrastructure. And again, I said, he showed his other side, his humility side, by saying he was going to give out 88,000, and he withdrew that. A good leader listens. You see, great people make mistakes. Great men, it's only great men that make mistakes. They don't make same mistakes. Now, if you don't criticize constructively, you don't even have to be in opposition. If you really want APC to go on forward, you must criticize the system. Look at this man, Northwest Vice Chairman, what's his name again, who withdrew his services from the APC, and he brought to bear the things he never liked. This is how to run a government successfully. Now, the best friend you will ever have is one that looks at you and tells you the truth. Truth is constant. It doesn't matter how you feel. In good faith, in love for country, we must be able to look at ourselves and tell ourselves the truth. So
NNPP wants to look at the APC in love and tell them the truth.
We're already doing that. We're already doing that. Now, you see, we have one country. It doesn't matter whether NNPP, APC, once you have got a president that presides over the nation, then it is for us to now rally around and put in our quotas, find out how to be a better place for all of us to live in.
All right. So one thing I have heard, you talked about your principal, just putting in place some measures. I think a good credit system is what the government might look into to see how they could come up with that, because those persons who leave this country, what happens is when they get into those other countries, they plug into that system. And once you plug into a credit system. You're not under pressure to provide cash to buy a house. You can't provide cash to buy a car. You don't have to provide cash to do basic things. There's a system in place. So that takes a lot of burden of people. But here we play a lot of politics with data. So it's difficult because some people think if you get that data, they could use it, interpret it for election results. They interpret it for different things, and so they won't work towards getting that. Nothing wrong in harmonizing all our data here. It's for planning and for development. But if we keep putting politics first before those things, say, oh, no, if you come up with a proper figure for census, with state of origin, or we'll get to see the real figures, you can't develop a country that way. So we need to learn probably to decide what we actually want. So, so there you go. No, just Syria. I've tried to listen to my conversation. But I want to thank you for coming on. Bishop Isaac Idahosa was the NNPP vice presidential candidate. And so he says, well, they're going to be constructing what? Constructively. Criticizing constructively. Not, is that opposition? That's still opposition.
They're going to be criticizing in love.
Okay.
Constructively. No, constructive criticism.
That's what I heard.
You see, anything in love, when you have love for country, you criticize in love.
Okay.
Because we have got one country, we have got one president, so we must team up to ensuring things move on better.
All right, so let's take a look at some from feedback. Dixon Eka says, as lawyers all over the country, under the aegis of the Nigerian Bar Association, continue their general conference in Abuja, issues of timely dispensation of justice and digitalization of courtrooms should be considered. Election tribunal cases should be decided before candidates are sworn in. There's no good reason why cameras may not be allowed in our courts. We watched judgments of the sentencing of Senator Ekweremadu, how meticulous the judge was. We can do the same, particularly for electoral matters, and this will also make the judges to sit up and be fair in their dealings.
Okay, there's one other... Oh, there are a number of other emails here, but we cannot take them, I'm afraid. We also see your...
I think you can see that.
Beg your pardon. Yes, I can see Adele. Yes, it says, I was at the university last week, and to my utter dismay, I saw a male student who pierced his nose and ear. To cap it all, he was putting on a shark cap. Oops. We now have undergraduates, age-wise, who are secondary school students in our days. These students can easily be influenced because they're still in their formative ages, 15 to 16 years. I'm of the opinion that the rules are in order. Just recently, we saw a lawyer dressing nude on the guise of being a social media influencer, a member of the noble profession. Her only difference was that she's not a practicing lawyer. Now, that's from Adele Adejumo.
Look, it's not as simplistic as this, you know, but that's his perspective. And that is the show today, actually. We do thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I am Chamberlain, so goodbye.
Well, I can tell you, Joe, we also got your mail trying to clarify issues around whether or not the school has debunked it. Apparently, they were considering it, and that memo went out. I mean, that's what we have been able to gather so far. That memo went out even to the student body. But it'll be very interesting to know what the OAU has finally decided. Are these the rules, the new rules that students will have to comply with? We're waiting to get a feedback. Thank you for watching this beautiful Tuesday morning. I can't believe it's just Tuesday.
And just to remind you, it's still 29th of August today. It's a Tuesday morning, Malwe. Amaya Makinde, have a wonderful and productive day.